Don't forget to hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't, and let's get into it. So in today's video, I am replacing these Iflight motors with a new set I recently picked up by AxisFlying. These are 1960 kV motors, so a little more appropriate for a 6S build. There's grass covering this frame kind of all over the place. I've been flying in dry and wet conditions, and it's just really accumulated on there. So here's the motor. It's 227. I don't know why it's not 2207, but maybe some of you can tell me why that is. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and start removing especially the props and the top plate so I can start disassembling and getting the motors resoldered to the plate. When you're working on the bench, always remove the props. I'm probably about 75% complete on that instruction, so you should always remove the props when you're working, well, when you're really plugging into the computer and doing any Betaflight programming. So this is the Radio Master ELRS 2.4 gigahertz receiver. I just zip tie it to the top of the flight controller so it's not flapping around. And yes, I know my antennas are pointed in the same direction. I hope to fix that on a future repair. So I'm removing the motors. I will desolder them. However, I did take out all of the desoldering content because I just wasn't really getting good content out of my camera setup. So please like and subscribe in order to see some of the desoldering and soldering work. I went ahead and put on 2 of the motors, and now I'm going to put on the other 2 and start wiring it up. You'll see the flight controllers off, so you can see the ESC there, so you can access the pads in order to solder. I'm opening up the box and going to take a look at the motor wires. So you'll see this. They were packaged nicely. I ordered directly from AxisFlying. I did not order from any other retailer just because I like to support those who are in this industry. The motors are plenty long enough. I don't really know how long they are. I just know that they're long enough, and that's really all that's important. So you'll see me attach them. I started with just 1 screw to hold the motor to the frame, but I went ahead and put all 4 on there just to keep them from shifting around. You'll see some of the soldering work. You won't see the desoldering, but before I get to that, I'm cleaning it up with isopropyl and a brush, and then I'll blow it off, dry it up. Isopropyl won't really harm any of the electronics. Whatever's left, there's not really anything left. But I figured this would be a good time to clean it up and make it look like new, and I'm really happy I did because it looks fantastic now. Blowing it off, make sure I'm getting all of the additional crud that's left on there. And it's just really good to do once in a while. You end up with a really nice build. So I use a flux paste on the solder work. I didn't show all of the wiring soldering because it can get kind of boring, but you can at least see what I'm working with. I realized in watching this video that the tip, I'm using a larger tip, and I did not intend to do that, but it's helpful on an ESC to have a large enough tip to attach everything. This one could certainly use some cleanup, and maybe a smaller tip would have worked, but I usually use around a 500 degree Fahrenheit tip heat. And so it just works really fast. It's a little slower on some of these because the pads are a little dirty. I did clean them up, but any little crud in there will slow down your soldering work. So always clean it up. I think I just show one side of this, but really nice clean solder, lots of flux, lots of heat. If you're having trouble soldering, better flux and higher heat. And anyway, I went ahead and rubber cemented the heat shrink around the motor wires. Yes, I know there's other things to hold the motor wires in place, but hey, the best thing that works is what you have. Heat guns really speed up the curing process on rubber cement. So when I was working on a time schedule and needed to glue a couple pieces together, a heat gun really works wonders. So you'll see already this is cleaning up really nicely. I'm now mounting the ESC, the mounting screws on. In the process, I realized there was a little nick in one of the motor wires, so I put a dab of liquid tape just to protect it. It's really shouldn't have any wire exposed. However, I think liquid tape will cover this tiny little hole nicely and will clean up nicely, and you won't have to desolder, which I was afraid I was going to have to do and do something with the wire. After I had the ESC on, I realized I still needed to put the air unit on, so I went ahead and just left the ESC on, fed the camera wire underneath the ESC so that I could get to the VTX that's mounted on the back of the frame. That's just the limitation of this frame. I really like it. There's plenty of room for everything, but you should think ahead a few steps because I missed doing this. Lifted it up a little, pulled the camera wire through, and then I'll put it back on the air unit, mount the air unit, and finish up the build and go flying. One thing to be to take note when you're putting on the camera, make sure, or when you're mounting it to your frame, make sure that you have the proper size screw, because if you screw it, if it's too long and you screw it down really tight, you could really damage the camera. And I didn't want to do that, so I wanted to verify that I had 5.5 millimeter screws and not 6 millimeter screws. I got 6 on this initially. When I rechecked it, 5.82, and that's good enough. It's a little bit of extra length, but it's not really going to do any damage to the camera. Putting the ribbon cable back on. Don't be afraid of ribbon cables or taking things apart. That's how I grew up and how I learned to work with this stuff, even though I'm not an electrician or an expert in soldering. Really just trying it and learning and improving along the way is really how I got to this point. No screws will go in the VTX until it's mounted on the frame. You have to mount with the mounting screws through the frame. That's just the setup on this unit. So this is the zip tie that's going back around the ELRS receiver, and once it's tied down and clipped, then we will finish preparing the build. Finishing up some of the attachments to the frame. And I really like this, so you'll see it's perfect. Just what I wanted. So I gave myself a hand. As this wraps up, if you have any suggestions for what I could do better, please let me know in the comments so that I can either learn from you, maybe you learned something from me. That's really what this is all about. And one thing that you'll suggest is use a shorter lead. This is just crazy long. The reason it's that long is I left the whole link that came with the HoosierFPV 60 amp ESC. I went ahead and just left it all on. I didn't cut it. I can do that, but I really hate soldering connectors. I really hate soldering these XT60s. So anytime I can leave them alone, I would rather do that. So thanks a lot for watching. This was probably about my 5th or 6th flight after I got this build. I went out of town and flew around this lake. And so if you like this, please check out my other videos. I'll have maybe 1 or 2 more of these. By the way, this is my first real flight over water. I have been hesitant to do so just because it's inherently dangerous. I don't want to drop out of the sky. So as I get more confident, there will be more water videos. Hope you like, and see you next time. Thanks for watching.